It's 2 o'clock. Inspiration 92.3 FM.
Don't forget to social distance.
Welcome to Soni Irabor Live. So that is it. Welcome to Soni Irabor Live, and two ladies are going to tackle something that it seems to take a swipe at men today on the show. Well, I made it broad spectrum because I didn't want to lay it only at the square feet of a man who was said to have violated his daughter sexually. But incest is a major problem, it appears. And then the other thing is, you know, we believe that if we really want to look at things, why should adult men be dealing with minors, female minors, sexually, all for personal gratification? You know, so it really is very worrisome. I have two ladies. The first one is in Edinburgh, in United Kingdom. That's Scotland, United Kingdom. And that's Dr. Mrs. Loretta Ogboro-Okor. Yes, Loretta Oduware Ogboro-Okor. Okay. Are you there? Doctor, are you?
Good afternoon, Uncle Soni Irabor.
Your voice is very solid.
On air today.
How are you today? Good. I'm glad that you could make it. I'm going to tell you about Doctor very soon. The other person, we are still waiting for her, where she did say she was going to go to church, and from church she'll come and join us. However, let me stay with Dr. Loretta Oduware Ogboro-Okor. How do you pronounce your last name, please?
So my last name is Ogboro-Okor.
Oh, sorry.
Okor.
Okay, Okor. Okay, fine. Right. Well, Dr. Ogboro-Okor is a medical doctor, and beyond that, she's something, in fact, she's very loaded, if I may say so. How do I really describe her? Maybe I should just try and read a bit of what she represents. Dr. Oduware Ogboro-Okor. She earned her MBBS from the prestigious University of Benin, Nigeria, and MSc in Public Health Research from the University of Edinburgh, and another MSc and Clinical Education from the University of Sheffield, Hallam, both in the UK. She's currently doing a PhD in Law and Criminology, Sheffield Hallam University. She's a teacher. She's a member of the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, and in the UK, That's in the UK, sorry. And has worked in the NHS now for over 10 years. Well, doctor, when we talk about somebody like you and what you possess, sometimes I ask myself, she has gone to all the schools, she's gone to read all the books. But wait for this. She's passionate about tackling women's reproductive and mental health issues. She's also a clinical stimulant or simulation expert and author of the book My Father's Daughter. Now, that your book, My Father's Daughter, with the topic at hand, sometimes I want to throw it in, but no, we'll talk about that much later. Let's find out from you, what is clinical simulation?
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, from cold and it's getting dark Sheffield. So clinical simulation is when you, like the name goes, simulation. It actually started with the pilots. You know that flying an aeroplane and learning how to fly it is not something you can do in the everyday classroom. So you have to generate a scenario that will simulate, that's where that word has come from. It will mimic or liken being in the air. It will also mimic the possible mishaps that could happen and how they can be tackled. Yeah. So over the years, from the pilots, the medical field has also developed their own simulation teachings. Okay. Where, for instance, in my own field of OBGYN, we will create a scenario using high-fidelity mannequins of a woman who is bleeding or a woman who is having a fit secondary to raised blood pressure or a cardiac arrest. And then students as well as professionals are made to tackle that so that they prepare for real-life scenarios. Oh, wow. So it's called medical simulation, and we organize this training for continued professional development and to save lives. Very, very important form of training.
It's very, very important, and I'm so happy that that kind of thing is something that you're dealing with. But the mental health issues is the one that I believe should concern us mainly because of the topic at hand, which is, how adult men, misuse and abuse young women sexually. I know this may not sound new to you because of your profession, but if you understand me clearly, how do you think the world sees a man who is like, okay, let's say my age, I'm over 60, and then I'm dealing with a young lady who is like maybe 20, 22. She's a full-grown woman, by the way, so she has all the trappings of a matured woman. And by law, once you are 18, you're very matured. But is she matured mentally? Yes. These are the issues. So let's look at it from that point of view first, before we go into the nitty-gritty.
Yes, looking at it from the point of view you have pointed out, it's very important because these two individuals in this case, they are adults. One is over 22, the woman, and the man is, going in his 60s. And once anybody is greater than 18, they are termed to be adults. Okay. And they have their fundamental human rights. They have capacity and the ability to make their own decisions. Okay. However, in the scenario you just described, there are certain salient things that we must look out for. There is the issue of vulnerability, and there's the issue of power or pressure gradients in different aspects. So vulnerability is when someone has things that make the person prone to being coerced or being threatened. Now, the gradients could happen in terms of financial gradients. It could happen in terms of a power gradient in any form. So, i.e., perhaps a lecturer to students, a boss to an employee. It's such a situation that kind of relationship can then be exploited So we must, in this case, realize that there are those few in this scenario, very few, since they are both adults, who may actually share the trappings of a proper relationship. However, in most cases, we shouldn't be blind to the fact that when you have this kind of age dichotomy, there is some sort of exploitation. Now, the exploitation may be mutual, or the exploitation may be one-sided, i.e., a man at that age may be looking for a woman who may care for him for the rest of his life, while the woman is looking for social and financial security.
So,
in some cases, this may not be the case. It may just be outright threat, coercion, and the exploitation of a power gradient.
But the problem we are facing is the fact that people of different, professional callings find themselves maybe at a disadvantage or at an advantage. So sometimes I ask myself, which one is more important, the disadvantage or the advantage? Okay, look, let me explain myself better. If somebody is financially buoyant and he has a lady or a girl who is probably, even if she's 30 and she's not financially buoyant, she now finds herself at the mercy of this man who is dictating the tunes financially. Would that girl therefore be willing to give herself away for the money or for freely for the love? I don't think so. So, but can that girl or anybody even find fault in the movement by the man? That's my question.
Well, it depends on the circumstance. The circumstance you painted is a man who is financially stable and a young woman who is just coming up the ladder in life. Now, if such a man makes an advance at such a woman without any form of threat or coercion, and she had got capacity and she consents, having processed all his advancements, then I don't think we can outrightly say that there has been a breach there.
Okay.
It is in certain situations where there is a gradient within another set of relationship. So maybe a very rich lecturer and who is 65 and his young student who is maybe 30, then there was another relationship, and now there is a gradient where you can exploit things. Or a doctor and their patient, for instance. So if I had a young man who is my patient, for instance, and he's maybe 25, he's an adult, but I'm a doctor, and I'm postmenopausal in my 50s. But if both of us don't have partners or are not in other relationships, you can't really prove that coercion. If it was just on a good day we met outside of the medical practice or doctor-patient relationship, you can't really prove that coercion was the cause of that, or that the young man was interested in my money. But yes, certainly, that is the underlining in most cases.
So the Hippocratic oath from that particular example, where does it fall into? If you are a doctor and you have a relationship with a patient, does that Hippocratic oath affect that relationship? Should you or should you not, of thing?
The Hippocratic oath is clear. You should not have sexual relationships with your patient.
And we know that many doctors are committing that, aren't they?
Well, many doctors have been found to violate that across board, both in Nigeria
I like your choice of language. Found to violate.
Yes, they have been found to and the thing is, you must also realize that there is sometimes what you call transference. So there are patients who come in and they begin to crush on their doctors, either way, male, female, or female, male. And it takes a lot of discipline and professionalism to be able to stand your ground and say no, especially when it is female to male. So there are measures that are put in place to sort of prevent these kind of things from happening. The first one is you're advised to have a chaperone with you. when you are doing examinations that breach personal space in patients. Or even depending on the kind of patient, if you perceive that it's going to be a difficult patient. If I've had a patient before who comes into my consulting room, and there was a time my husband told me that there was a patient of theirs who all she did immediately they came in was take off her clothes. She just takes off her clothes and begins to show her breast. And in that situation, what they did was that each time they went there, they had to go with chaperone and go as a big ward round. All the males became reluctant to see her by themselves. And this was in England.
Oh, boy.
So it can be the other way. At the same time, it can also be a situation where the doctors actually sexually molest the patient. In whatever direction this is going, it is not right at all, because once there is a gradient in power, in authority, once one party perceives the other as very attractive because of what they see in them or they idolize them, then the basis of that relationship is faulty.
Wow, I'm going to come back to you because Dr. Pamela Udoka is already in the studio with me, and I think she's been listening to us. So she's a clinical psychologist. So, but
excellent.
One more question, please, before I go to her. There's a burning story, trending story that has to do with a young girl who accused her father of sexually molesting her for many, many years. Although the man has come back to say now that he only did it once. Is once enough or once is not enough? Whatever the excuse. What do you have to say before I move on to Dr. Udoka?
Uncle Soni,
yes?
In whatever way you look at it, it is completely unacceptable.
Absolutely.
In fact, when I read that trending story and I saw that the man said, "Oh, I abused her, but it is once," I was like, what? It's important that as far back as 2015, UNICEF reported that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 10 boys in Nigeria had experienced sexual violence before the age of 18.
From their parents?
And that...
Or what?
And then they went on to say about 75% of these were from people who they knew. So, i.e., people in their families, people who are neighbors, people around them. And this is exactly what we are seeing now. That, I mean, why would a father come out and say, "I slept with her only once and not as many times as she had said"? Why exactly would you think that your daughter is the best person to have sexual affiliations with? Some have attributed it to mental health illnesses. Others have attributed it to the fact that, there is some social-cultural requirements, and someone today was telling me, some use it as some sort of ritual in certain cultural context. But we cannot defend this at all in any way. You can't be raping your child every day. More so in this story, the girl said that the mother often used to look the other way, and it's as though maybe she didn't realize that. But how can you be a mother and you are not observant of what is going on around you?
God,
or is
Jesus.
it that sometimes in our society, like we've seen, some mothers just look the other way because they want to remain married. They want to answer that name of Mrs. Or they are married to the very rich. And this very rich man has some mental health issues that has never been tackled. And part of it is sleeping with his young child. And this woman doesn't want to leave this wealth and this famous family. So they look the other way when these things are happening. And even children become the product of this kind of unholy liaison. Children who didn't ask to be part of it. So a lot of things
this is where
happening. And
thank you so much. This way, don't drop. This is where I bring in Dr. Pamela Udoka. Doctor, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I had to run from the church meeting.
I know you told me you were going to be. Yeah. So anyway, you heard what has been going on. Let's start from where she just stopped. What is as a clinical psychologist, how do you look at first, the victim, which is the child. Second, the mother who looks the other way. And third, the what do you call that again?
The pedophile?
The protagonist, the one who...
Okay.
Yeah, the man himself, who is the perpetrator of the nonsense.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me just take us back a little bit. There's something you mentioned, the transference and counter-transfer. Let me just tackle that before I answer your question.
Okay.
Thanks for mentioning that. The issue of transference is very, very interesting, that we're actually taught in school. You know, sometimes when you're assessing or doing therapy for a client, the person just assumes, oh, since you know all about my problems and you seem to have the solution, maybe you should have been the one I was having a relationship with. Maybe I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now. You know, that is the mentality behind that. So now we're not talking about counter-transference because you have to be professional. You have to be clinically detached and emotionally detached from your client to be able to work with that person successfully. So if you're not going to a relationship with your client, I mean, that's unethical.
Yes.
Okay, so that's that. So I really like, it was an interesting course when the late Professor Molabi taught us.
Okay.
So now talking about these people, you know, she also mentioned something about, she was asking questions, whether it is that, whether it is this. And then looking at these individuals, the way you have classified them, let's look at the child, for instance. The child is helpless, totally helpless. And in some cases, the child does not even know whether it is right or wrong. The child does not have that knowledge to know that what daddy, in quote, is doing to me is wrong. Because definitely, the daddy will be telling her, oh, I'm taking care of you, I love you, that's why I'm doing this. So the child will be doing it willingly. After all, it's my daddy, and she does not expect daddy to harm her. Okay? And let's also be sensitive that sometimes this abuse is also the other way around. It can be a mother abusing a son. But for the purpose of clarity, let's just focus on a father-daughter abuse. Okay? Now,
but I like that perspective you just added, that even a mother abuses her son.
Yes, it's normally, but the reportage of that one is very, very low because we don't expect that to happen, but it does happen.
My God.
Because when you see clients, you will hear all sorts of things, you will hear all sorts of case studies. Okay? So now, for the purpose of clarity and for this conversation, let's just focus on daddy, in quote. I keep saying in quote because no right thinking daddy will do that to a child, or that sexual abuse. Okay? And we have also differentiate between rape and sexual abuse. He is not raping her. He is sexually abusing her. You know? And then...
but the new law says that anything that is rape, anything that, if you go to a man or a woman against his or her will, it's rape. Not
that sexual abuse is normal or is acceptable.
Okay.
You know? In most cases, he's not taking it forcefully.
Okay.
He would have brainwashed her, cajoled her, or this is what daddies do to their daughters that they love. So she's offering herself willingly, but the adult who knows that it is wrong is committing what we call sexual abuse. It's abusing that child. And now we are talking about the mother who looks the other way. You know, she doesn't have to be married to a rich man. Women who are married to poor men also look away. And in this latest case that is trending, the father works in I think the Polytechnic. So I don't know how rich, in quote, a Polytechnic staff would be. You know, that you say, okay, because he's so rich, the wife doesn't want to leave him. You know, but you see, when we look at our culture, we have this culture of silence. We have this culture of let my neighbors know how bad mine is, or don't put your own case out there. Okay.
So it's the stigma.
To avoid that stigma, that name calling, that issue of why are you exposing our family? Why are you exposing your family? That's why most women keep quiet. And if there has been a case, very popular case or cases where when such things come up, they are actually persecuted, you know, the law is followed through, and then you see that, okay, this person that is popular who committed this offense has actually been persecuted, has actually been jailed. You know, maybe most women who are in that situation can speak up.
Okay, now let me quickly step in there. I have two questions to ask you and Dr. Loretta Ogboro-Okor. Now, the first one, you being in Nigeria, practicing in Nigeria, does that law exist? And if it does, has it been applied? As one. Then to Dr. Loretta, your own is you are in the UK, and so I want to believe that law also exists. How often is it applied? Okay, Dr. Loretta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So, can you quickly respond to that before I ask Dr. Udoka to respond to?
In the UK, we have laws against sexual abuse, child molestation, and I like the fact you pointed out that sexual abuse is not rape. My co-discussant was right to point that out, because sometimes these children, that's why I use the word coerce.
Okay.
So they actually don't, they actually give consent, but the question is, so what are they giving consent? How old are they? Are they even at that age that can give consent to such sexual liaison? And in the UK, I will tell you that these rules are very, very much present and very, very much implemented. So the problem is that in Nigeria, we have the Child Rights Act as well.
Yes.
Yes.
We and all these things are in existence. And in fact, I was reading that in 2019, Mrs. Pauline Tale, Nigerian's Minister for Women's Affairs and Social Development, she actually went and she launched, as part of the government strategy to deal with all these kind of things, the sex offenders register. But it's not enough to have these things and not implement it. That's the difference. In the UK, it is implemented.
Okay.
If I try anything at all right now with any child, any male child, I will lose my GMC license. There's no two way about it. So when people are held accountable for their actions, then most times you find that they think twice before they commit those kind of atrocities. That is not to say that it completely stops it, because even still in the UK, we do still have people. And the sex offenders register is such that you can search for it online. You can see people's names on there. Yes, even before unemployment.
So nothing to hide anymore.
Nothing. So there's a proper database.
Okay.
Which is something that even though we have this register in Nigeria, how proper is our database? How much gathering of data are we doing?
I think that's where Dr. Pamela Udoka will answer. Yes, Dr. Pamela Udoka, she just asked the question.
Yeah.
How is the Nigerian scenario?
Well, the thing is that I like the fact that she said in the UK it's implemented.
Yes.
We have the same laws here.
Yeah.
And I think not all the 36 states have the law. Some of them have, I remember, Ekiti State, I think Lagos State, not all 36 states. So it shows the importance government attaches to the cause. Okay? And I know a few women who also live their lives fighting that war, as it were. I can mention off the top of my head Josephine Fachukuma. I can mention Antonia Jenagbon. I can mention Priscilla Usifo. But when these women tell you tales of what they go through just to put these perpetrators behind bars, it's sickening, because it's obvious that these men have committed crimes, and then to put them behind bars, they are treated with kids' gloves as
so
if
they are foot dragging.
Yes, it's ridiculous. So the laws are there, but how is it implemented? A typical Nigerian man, for instance, will not feel he is committing a crime by doing that. Just feel I can get away with it.
But the evidence is that he has broken the law.
He has.
So he should face the law.
Yes, but in fact, it's borders on frustration. What people have to go through to persecute those who have perpetrated the crime. So it's not a lack of existence of the law, but it is lack of implementation, lack of the legal officers, or let me say the police officers, let me call them for instance, because they are the first contact, apart from the medical team, trying to prove whether there was a crime or whether this has been done. When there's evidence gathered and it's taken to the police station, either it starts being killed from there or before it even goes to court, or you find out sometimes money exchanges hands and these people are not persecuted. So it's frustrating. The laws are there, and it's not enough to just put a register and say, okay, this is a register. What does that benefit a typical Nigerian, that somebody's name is on that register? Then what? What happens? Is it proof that he won't work again or he won't get a job? What are the non-benefits of belonging to that list? So it's not. Yeah, what are the deterrent factors? Thank you, sis. There's no significant impact. We just know, there's a list, we have some names there, but what have these men, what has been taken away from their lives by their names being in that list? That's what we should be looking at, not just some list that
now,
exists.
There's something here. Let me just take you back a little.
Okay.
Some lady is reacting vehemently. This sent in by WhatsApp said, I heard the doctors say sexual abuse of a child is not rape. Sexual abuse by an adult of a minor is a rape, where penetrative sex is involved. Rape is carnal knowledge of a woman without her consent. Where a child is not old enough to give consent, it is statutory rape, even if violence was not involved. Now, Dr. Loretta Ogboro-Okor, your reaction to that?
Let's be careful with the terms and the little differences between the terms.
Okay.
If you talk about sexual abuse, it's an umbrella term, sort of, and under this, it may involve rape, it may involve sexual assault, it may involve molestation, it may involve pornography. So it can go on and on. Of course, there are nitty-gritties and total differentiation in the law, but we also do need to be thoughtful how we actually interpret all of these things. So saying sexual abuse is not rape, it doesn't mean that it's not encompassing of rape. But what we are trying to point out, what myself and my co-discussants are trying to point out here today, is that there's a whole lot more to it as well.
Okay.
Because, like she said, if someone is coerced, if someone is molested, for instance, if you make a child do pornography, you have sexually abused that child, but yet you haven't raped that child.
Exactly.
Wow. Let's begin to get the distinction.
Okay. Now, let's now begin to look at the psychological implication. Very soon we'll start taking calls, so, and I'm not blinded to that fact. I'm very aware. But let's look at the psychological, emotional, and I hear people keep saying mental health issues. For goodness sake, it don't take mental health now. It don't issue. What I'm trying to say from all of you is that there's something that is fundamentally wrong. The law was established many, many decades ago to address this issue. And the law is not being addressed. It's painful, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a clinical psychologist, what's your reaction to that?
I said before, it borders on frustration. Because most times when the act is committed, the focus on the child, and they leave the perpetrator. Wow. This perpetrator needs not only to be put behind bars, but he needs to be treated as somebody who has a mental illness.
In fact, I heard where somebody said, sorry I stopped you there, I didn't mean to, but somebody said they went to a police station to report a rape case, and the police was asking the woman, why are you dressed like this? Why won't he rape you? That kind of a thing.
That's one of the ridiculous questions they ask. Because I remember when I gave a talk in one university in the Southwest, and a lady, she's Muslim, she said when she was raped, and she was talking about this for the first time in public, after I finished speaking, she said when she was raped, she was dressed, you know how Muslims dressed?
Yeah, well covered.
Covered from head to toe. She said she was going for a lecture. It was not even night that she was in, it was like an evening, maybe 4-ish. And she was dragged into a corner and was raped. So I said she was not only wearing gloves, she was wearing socks as well. So what's that about rape? And then children who are sexually abused, babies, how are they dressed? How does a diaper attract an old man? You know, so that policemen are just ignorant. Some of them are just ignorant. You know, I've been to a police station myself. Somebody had me on radio like this, and then called my number, an Uber driver. I went to the police station. I can even call in Oshodi, and there and then the families of the guy who committed the rape came and were begging. The next thing, the mother of the child told me that she's not interested in the case anymore because money had exchanged hands. You know, I felt, I wouldn't say I felt stupid, because I mean stupid would have been putting it mildly. You know, so those who are supposed to enforce the law are not enforcing it. So I don't know where the issue is. I don't know if they can enforce the law. Who will not enforce them to enforce the law? Okay. This is very serious, because they're looking at something that tells us that all hope is lost if we cannot be protected. That's what you say. Yes. Okay. Well, all hope is not lost, because they can right their wrongs. They can wake up to the fact that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing and start doing it. Who starts the fight and who sustains the fight? You and I. Okay. By doing what you're doing now, we are talking about it. Somebody somewhere will listen and realize that, okay, maybe those down the line are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right. And then he now calls them to order. Dr. Loretta, before I call the people to come and talk to us on the phone, do you agree with what she just said? Your co-panelist, your co-guest.
I do agree with my co-panelist, and she made something very, very clear, which is what I always say, that clothes do not define a rapist. You know, it is lack of self-control. Yes. After all, women in hijabs are being raped as well. And I have been fortunate. I would say fortunate. I've been fortunate to be exposed to these kind of issues since I was in university. I used to be one of the associates of the Women's Health and Action Research Center in Benin as a student in Uniben. And I've been a member of the Association Against Women Export, led by Osemeti Okosun, Dr. Okosun, where we have worked with women and people who have been involved in this kind of thing. And you find that what my co-panelist is saying is true. There are cases where we take it up, and then the next thing, the lady comes in, or the young child's mother comes in and says, oh, I don't want this thing to go on. Maybe because there is a financial gradient and they've been paid. Okay, then maybe the police... Yeah, sorry. If the police won't help, then you have to trumpet your cause. We have to trumpet our cause, which is what you are doing here today. We are putting social media to good use now, and we are trying to enlighten our people as well. I think what we need most, too, is the fact that many people, maybe we should call a town hall meeting where there's an open conference. People discuss. You know, people speak on microphones and they ask questions and all of that. And those who defend a position of saying, I need the money, and those who do not, let everybody face one another. And let's see how that works out. But in the meantime, let me... Yeah? You see, they are not going to come out in a town hall meeting and tell you that they are going to do that. I think that one of the things we should be doing is a paradigm shift. How are we raising our girl child? What are we telling them? Our society does not discuss anything below the neck. How much more things that are in the pudendal or pelvic area. You find that young girls are growing up, their mothers are not even talking to them about menstruation. Exactly. When things are happening, who are they going to talk to? Exactly. We as a society, we need some sort of socio-cultural integration. We need to start talking to our girl child and even our boy children as well. Imagine there's a joke. I will have to say it here now, where they said that, you know, a young girl was growing up, and the mother said, if any man sees your pants, you will get pregnant. So one day she was going to climb a tree, then she pulled her pants and climbed the tree. Can you see the irony? Yes, I heard that joke. She did. Yes. After all, she was not wearing a pants, so nobody saw her pants. Yes. Our girl children and our boy children. Yes. Oh my God. There has to be a relationship. Growing up, my mother never had any discussion about sex, or anything. We weren't even talking about that organ. It didn't have a name.
No.
So imagine if someone, like my neighbor, was touching it. When will I tell my mother my neighbor was touching?
Exactly.
When he's never told me the name of that place.
Doctor,
I mean, my co-discussant, we agree with you.
I totally agree
that
with
we
you.
need to change our cultural paradigm.
Yes.
okay, all right. Let me slow you guys down. There's something that just came on WhatsApp, but before I say it, let me quickly. The number is 0700 923 923 923. Please call, and then you can have a chance to talk to the panelists or the guests who are experts in their own rights. And believe it or not, they are both doing their PhDs as we speak. One is a clinical psychologist. One is a how do you say that? Obstetrician and gynecologist.
Obstetrician and gynecologist.
O&G.
Of pregnant and non-pregnant women.
Yeah.
Okay, I will stay with O&G.
O&G, yes. Or OBGYN, yes.
Yeah, the number is 0700 923 923 923, and the WhatsApp number is 0817 313 6193. Yes, 0817 313 6193. Okay, so let's call so that we can take your voice or send your message. This is from Franklin. Good afternoon, sir. Hello to you, wonderful guests. They have been excellent in their analysis. Well, sir, according to your guest, and I believe this is Dr. Loretta, if I enter a hospital and treated by a younger unmarried female doctor, and I am single, I like her charisma and character, and we have things in common. So it's unethical for me to express my feelings and marry her. And he puts 4 question marks.
Well, Franklin, it is unethical for her to accept your advances while she's still your care provider.
Yes.
So if maybe 2 years down the line, after that episode, you see her and then you make your advances, it is understandable and acceptable within that time frame.
Okay.
However, while that doctor is actively your care provider, it is completely against the rules for that to happen.
Yes. Same with clinical psychologists as well. It is unethical to have that kind of relationship.
Okay.
It is.
So anything to do with
Client relationship should be professional. Nothing romantic, nothing intimate. You should treat your client as a client, and that is it.
Care AD.
Yes, but that does not prevent the client from having any interest in you. That's the person's own prerogative.
But self-control is the
Yes,
issue.
but for you to respond and
You have to play the matured mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, go on.
And the reason it's not far-fetched, it is because, just to buttress what my co-discussant has said, it is because you need to keep an objective mind to be able to make critical decisions.
Exactly.
So, Uncle Soni, I cannot be your doctor now because if I'm close to you, I may not be able to make those critical decisions.
Exactly.
Because you will be emotionally impaired.
So,
that's why you find that doctors cannot treat
their family members.
Yes. Come to shove, or their wives, or their children.
Yes.
Okay. Hello.
I was having major surgery.
Hello.
And my husband couldn't be there.
Doctor, hold on. Yes, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Uncle Soni, you can't guess who this is. Many years ago, this is Loretta Oduware.
Hey, Larry, how are you? Good afternoon.
Two of those days.
Are you listening to the program? Because we are on a very top, hot topic.
I'm listening to the program. I've been listening since.
Okay. Nice.
I
Yeah.
just want to ask clinical psychologist.
Yes.
Now, there's something I have heard people talk about, apart from the spiritual and traditional issues that I don't want to condone anyway. Now, there's people talk about sex maniacs, that
Nymphomaniacs.
that kind of a thing, some kind of disease associated with it, and also the mental issues that have been associated with it. I would want the clinical psychologist to address those issues from a professional point of view.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Loretta Oduware. That name sounds familiar. Number one, somebody who is sexually attracted to a younger person, maybe prepubescent or a child, is a pedophile.
Okay.
And pedophilia is a sexual disorder. You know, we can even classify it as an addictive behavior because the person just wants a temporary pleasure from something that has a long-term negative effect and keeps repeating it. You know, so, and we find out that the person who also has that kind of disorder also have a kind of personality disorder that we have under what we call a cluster B. You know, all this histrionic personality disorder or the antisocial personality disorder or borderline personality disorder. So the person definitely has a personality disorder. So the person has to be treated as somebody who is mentally ill, because that's why I mentioned earlier that we focus on the victim and would not realize that apart from treating the person who committed the act as a criminal offender, also treat him as somebody who has a mental disorder. Okay. So yes, so the person is ill. It's not just oh, let me just do this and go away. It's a repetitive action, because if you leave that person, he will not only sexually abuse his own child, he will do it to other young people. Okay, so it's definitely a sexual disorder, and there are other sexual disorders that we have under that classification.
It's very endemic in our society. And we're seeing, I don't want to classify any group of people, but usually men are often accused that they use financial inducement to corner the woman, the unsuspecting woman, or the expecting woman, and then commit all kinds of atrocities.
You see, when we say financial inducement, people will be thinking in terms of thousands of naira. Right, children have been sexually abused for as little as sweet.
Oh, God.
In fact, the most expensive one I heard was Indomie, you know, the pack of Indomie. I'm talking about sweets that maybe is 10 naira or something. Okay? So, but if we look at relationships of mother-daughter, if the mother has had that relationship with the child where the child can tell her everything.
Yeah.
And be able to say, okay, daddy gave me sweet and touched me, or uncle gave, you know, be able to talk about things that happen to her with the mom. So when anything happens, the mother is in the know. But sometimes the mother cannot also talk because of what we talked about earlier, the culture of silence. Yeah. Let me not be asking that it's my own bad past, or that phrase that I hate so much. It is well. People hide. I call that a phrase of denial. When you hide under that phrase and then things are happening, the roof is collapsing, and you keep saying it is well instead of seeking professional help. Okay.
This is very scary what you are telling me, because
it's real.
There is no self-control on the part of especially the men,
yes,
or women who are committing the crime.
Yes, there's no self-control.
And that lack of self-control is not helping matters. Then law enforcement is not playing its role properly.
It's not.
What is the role of the police? Okay, by the way, Dr. Loretta, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Okay,
I'm
good.
Listening.
I want to ask you, what is you I saw in your bio that you also studying something on criminology, and what was that again?
Law and criminology.
Law and
special attention. Yeah.
So then
trafficking.
You take over the lawyer that was supposed to come. We couldn't get him. So maybe you can explain this for me. You know, can you tell me why the law appears to be indifferent? I use the word appears. And what is the role of a policeman if he cannot enforce the law? There's a call coming in. Take note of those ones. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
Yes. What's your name? Your name is what?
Hello,
yes. Your name is...
Sir.
Say that again. Sorry, our voices are clashing.
Kingsley, sir.
Okay, Kingsley, from where are you calling?
I'm calling from Surulere.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I want to ask the madam there in the studio. We are new couples, young couples.
Okay.
And even when I was in secondary school, my teacher used to warn us that we shouldn't take our younger ones, that is up to 1 year, to the bedroom, be it male or female. Now, my wife is always fond of carrying our new born baby, that is 1 year and 6 months, to the bathroom, bathing him and bathing herself. And I've been warning her, she shouldn't be flaunting and nakedness before the child. The boy is so intelligent and sharp that even me sometimes, even when I'm wearing boxer, he will like come to play with my manhood. And I noticed that sometimes maybe when she's tying like wrapper or towel, the boy will just go there. So I want that lady to advise me, because I've been talking to my wife, she doesn't listen. And she shouldn't be taking the boy to the bedroom. Even if you want to bath him, she'll bath him and free him and come and go and have her own bath.
Yes.
Instead of bathing him and she herself will be bathing with him as well.
Okay.
So please, I want her to talk to me.
Yes.
I need her advice.
Let her talk now. Yes.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I wish your wife was listening to me as well.
Dr.
You are very right.
It's quite unfortunate that she's not at home now.
Okay.
You are very right. Please, you try and contact me after this program. I would like to talk with her. You are very right.
Okay.
Because what she's doing is sexual abuse. She's sexually abusing that young child. And she is doing it ignorantly. And funny enough, whatever is happening to that child now will transcend into a future behavior. Coincidentally, I'm also a sex therapist. We see issues like this in practice, where you have an adult who is married, having sexual disorders, and then you find out that sexual disorder, when you start probing and taking history, is something that happened when the person was a child.
Yeah.
You understand? So you are very right. And the fact that he can come and play with your manhood, in your boxers, it means she has been playing with her mother's private parts, when she's giving him a bath, or when she's taking her own bath, or when they are together. So as far as he is concerned, it is a normal thing to do. So your caution is in order, okay? And please, your wife is sexually abusing that child. And if care is not taken,
after the show, but I'll copy it and call.
My services are not free, by the way. But hold on, and if you're not careful, your neighbors might also start sexually abusing that child, because the child will feel it's a normal thing to do. It's normal to play with any adult's private parts. So please be very careful. Okay? You can contact Uncle Soni later.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So what about the maids who abuse children?
Yeah, I
you give your children to a maid to look after while you are away.
Yes, I'd like to also point out that some of the clients I see were sexually abused by their maids growing up.
Oh my God.
Most adults, in fact, let me say 60% of adults were introduced to sex and sexual intercourse by their maids. Because that is the closest adults to them. That's the one that will give them a bath. That's the one that will put them to sleep. That's the one that will take them to school.
That's the one that plays parental role
with them. Yes,
when the parents have abandoned their responsibilities.
Exactly. So when the child has a question, because of that relationship I mentioned earlier, there's no relationship with the child and the parents. So you find out that this child now, the most significant adult that is closer to the child now is the maid. And a maid who is sexually deprived will now start venting the sexual desire on the child.
Okay, now I want to ask the two of you, Dr. Loretta and Dr. Pamela. I want the two of you to promise me that I'm going to do a Zoom conference on this issue. And I want you to.
Can I say no to you, Uncle Soni?
No, you cannot.
Can I say no?
No, you cannot.
Adam say I can't. I can't say no.
Thank
it's an
you.
honor for me to do that for you.
You have coerced.
No, this one he has demanded. It's Uncle Soni now.
So, Dr. Loretta,
it will be my pleasure.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to create a Zoom that will take at least 1,000 participants. I'm hoping that will be the case, so that we'll do this kind of thing on a Zoom conference that hopefully a lot of people will listen to. That way, you guys will present your papers, to let us know. We're going to do it in series, different parts.
That would be great.
Yes.
That would be great. That would be part of the solution to our cultural bane. What's happening?
That issue of culture is going to be one program unto itself. Because I don't know how anybody can tell me that culture is the reason behind my breaking of the law. God Almighty. Okay, we only have... we only have about 5 minutes.
Time,
Sorry?
If we have time, we could just quickly throw light on the question you asked earlier on, before we had the caller, which is why the law appears to be indifferent and why the police cannot enforce the law.
Okay. Yes.
You see, globally, rape is hard to prove and to convict people on. That's one, globally. And then when you come in down to our society, you find that loads of women don't cry out because rape is an embarrassing crime.
Yeah.
You have to prove penetrative sex. They put you through a lot in the courtroom. Now, when it's the other way around, when it's a man who's been raped, the male ego is such, especially in Nigerian context, it's a very bloated balloon, and they don't want to talk about it. You know, and in court, it's usually the word of the person versus the other.
Yeah.
And how do you really prove the evidence of penetrative sex in terms of rape? So it's not as though the law is indifferent. The law has put these things there, but it is also very difficult to prove. Now, the police are keen to enforce the law in many crimes. Even in Nigeria, some of them are keen, not all of them are bad. But you see, in a situation where you have an economic crunch, or you have a police who hasn't been paid, then a lady comes and says, I want to withdraw the case, like we see in the NGOs I belong to, and they even pay. They take the line of least resistance. That's the word I would use. It's not as though they did not want to enforce that law, but then they take the line of least resistance. And then the whole thing goes pear-shaped. So, overall, don't forget that the Nigerian society is very much patriarchal as well. And if men are the major offenders, we are not saying women are not offenders, but men are the major offenders, there is some sort of unspoken camaraderie. And then it sort of then puts the woman in a very disadvantaged situation. And earlier on, my co-discussant did mention that a lecturer in Owo, what does he have? It may not be because of money that women are silent in prosecuting, especially the mothers or women in the know. But I want to point out that riches is relative. So if I'm a market woman with little or no finance or empowerment, and I'm married to a lecturer in a state university or polytechnic, that man is rich at that time, considering the social-financial gradient. And don't forget that there is those who are just comfort-starved. So there's this man. You see, in the places where I work, beware of that man who carries the wife's bag for antenatal. He's always there. He's always beside her. He doesn't do a wrong. Beware of that kind of man.
Wow.
Right. Tell me.
They are using overdose of comfort to manipulate that woman.
Yeah, well.
And those men are abusive most times, we find. And they come to those consultations. So
I must stop you there. Let me stop you there.
Let me
stop you there.
So you find that we put
Doctor,
numbers behind the toilet.
Doctor, let me stop you there. I only have 1 minute to go. Okay? Thank you very much. And Dr. Pamela, what's 30 seconds. What do you have to say?
Women have to sit up. They have
Women
to create that relationship with their daughters so their daughters can confide in them when they have such issues, and not wait to talk to an outsider before the person is believed. The mother
and that's very common here, right?
Yes, the mother should be able to sit up stand up for the child.
Dr. Loretta, what do you have to say? 30 seconds.
Mine is simple. Let's talk about sex. Let's start talking about it.
I'm going to play that record next week. Let's talk about sex.
You know that's my turf. That's my turf. You're talking sex therapy. That's my turf.
Thank you so.
All the good things and the bad things. Let's talk about sex.
Okay, darling. So thank you so much, all of you. And it's been Soni Irabor Live. Very explosive, this one. But this is the beginning of a 4-part show. Okay? All right now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's 3 o'clock. 92.3, your number one family radio.